Hello, I'm Daniel Meadows, and today I'm going to the Martin Parr Foundation in Bristol to see Niall McDiarmid's pictures, the first photographer invited to exhibit there. I first encountered Niall's photographs in 2013 in his book Crossing Paths. And encountered is a good word, I think, because it's precisely what his pictures are all about. It's a very particular approach, and one that I recognise only too well because it was my own when I lived on the free photographic omnibus, 50 years ago now, travelling about England, making my own national portrait. So Niall, the thing about you that really quickened the spirits for me was when you sent me your first book, the blue one.
Oh, the Crossing Paths. Yeah.
Crossing Paths.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about Niall, and then this book arrives, and I start going through it, and it was like I felt here was a kindred spirit, in the sense that I'm looking at the kind of pictures I might have been taking from my bus in 1974, except that they were in colour. And what do I mean by that? Kind of picture. I mean, it's this kind of engagement. There's something about people's expressions in your pictures which could only have been taken by you.
Yeah, a lot of people pick up on it, but I often don't see it myself. But yeah, going back to a little bit on your own work, it's funny because I had seen your work, the bus series, when I was at college in the early 90s. And then I'd actually forgotten all about it, to be honest. I'm sorry, but you know what I mean. It's sort of, I'm not a great studier of photography and that sort of stuff. And then I'd done this work for about a year, and then a friend of mine said, "Oh, you remember Daniel Meadows' work?" And I was like, "Oh yeah," and I'd been doing it for about a year. So yeah, I can understand the crossover. And yeah.
But it is not just about wandering around, bumping into strangers and taking their pictures, or even about the immediate engagement, the way they look at you, and the way you look at them, and that relationship that makes the picture. Or even the fact that you were shooting in colour and I'm not shooting in colour.
Yeah.
But it's something about the adventure of doing this as a project that spans out across the country, that is completely self-motivated. That's what, why do you work like that? Other people would work for magazines, or they work for newspapers, or they do something commercially.
I have been a commercial photographer for quite a few years, so one of the things that when I started doing this work, it was such a freedom that I could go to a town and I just didn't have to please anybody apart from myself, and even didn't have to please myself. It was just this thing of, I'm free, I'm traveling the country, I'm going to towns, and if I meet somebody, so be it. And I consciously set out with it to be almost like a laugh. It was fun. It was just a great way of going out there. Obviously, when you're out on the street, it's not that much fun. It might be raining, you're in Nuneaton on a Tuesday, and then the back of your mind is this thing, what the hell am I doing this for? This is strange, nobody's paying me. But when you come back and you've got some pictures, and you think, yeah, this is, it's freedom, and it's been a great adventure, and I still have that feeling.
And how do you fund this work?
Well, I tend to do it at the weekends or on a Friday. My wife works 4 days a week, and I tend to look after the kids. They're growing up a bit now, so I generally have more free time on a Friday or a Saturday, obviously. So what I'll do is I'll find a cheap ticket somewhere usually not too far to go, and the slow train out of London, get there midday somewhere, spend most of the day there. And because I'm booking cheap tickets, I'd end up getting the last train back into London, crawling in at about 11 o'clock. So yeah, that was mostly done on trains, and how do I fund it? Goodness knows me, I don't know. The funding one is a good question, because if I was rich and could afford it, I would never do it. I would take my kids on fancy holidays or buy myself a fancy car. Because I'm struggling a bit financially, there is a drive to make me go out there and do it. I don't know whether it's a feeling that I'll make money out of it, but it's just, I don't know. The financial thing, it's not easy, but
you've got to keep yourself in kit as well, haven't you? camera gear?
Camera gear, well, I don't have a huge amount of camera gear. I only had one camera and one lens when I started. And I started initially shooting on film. And I just used to chuck the films in a corner, and then I'd leave them, and then a few weeks later I'd come back and do them. It's all very random and not organised, and it's been great like that. And I love it, because sometimes I just go to my local station, which is Clapham Junction, and I just see wherever I've been, or wherever I've not been, I just go on a train there. In fact, that's one of the things I find very difficult sometimes, is choosing places to go to. I get in a bit of a panic. I think, oh my God, where should I go today? Which is a bit weird, but anyway. So yeah, I love that.
So here you are, somebody who's given up a commercial career to do this.
Sort of. I still work commercially a little bit, but I've thrown myself into this almost full time, and I do other work. But I took a gamble on myself. I think was one of the things.
But is it like you feel that you've got to make a big statement as a portrait photographer now? Like you've been working in photography for a long time, and now the moment has come for you to bring what you know and to make a big piece of work?
A couple of things on that. As regards being a portrait photographer, I never really know what the word means as in a portrait photographer, because this kind of idea like a portrait gallery is a portrait. What is a portrait? I don't know. I've never really pinned that one down. So I don't really consider myself to be a portrait photographer. But making a statement, I think there comes a time in your life you think, this is my chance. I've started to make a little bit of impression. I've done a good body of work. Whether it's any good or not, that's not my thing to say. But I've made a decent amount of work, and this is my gamble. This is my chance. And I'm going to push on and try my best to make it into something.
But you've also worked very hard on the social media, haven't you?
Well, being a photographer these days, you are quite solitary, and so social media is a way to reach people. I enjoy chatting to people, and I realise that a lot of social media suits somebody like me. I like to meet people, whether it's in the street, but also online, because there's other people out there who are, and one of the things I really do like is people who I've had interaction with on the social networks, and then I'm up and down the country and I meet them. I say, oh, quick coffee, grab for a coffee, which is really fantastic, because often you can judge people online, you get to know them a little bit, and then, and in fact all the people I've met over the years have been great, and I could just then go to Norwich and give whoever it is a quick call and say, a quick coffee. I mean, I have to be a bit careful, I don't disrupt the workflow a little bit, and sometimes I do go back to towns, and then people say, why didn't you give me a call?
So let's say it's not a rainy day, but it's a nice bright grey day, and you've just got off the train and you're in, I don't know, Tonypandy or Tonypandy here we go. Tonypandy, okay, and you arrive, and you're using a Fuji digital camera now.
I use digital, I have used all cameras, all sorts of cameras. I'm not particularly fixed on any, but I use a Fuji one.
Okay, so you've got your Fuji camera and you're prowling the streets, and how do you make your selection of the people you're going to photograph?
I don't know. I'm often with somebody and they say, oh, look, you should photograph that person. And whenever somebody says that, it never seems to be the right person. There is a moment when I see somebody and I think, yeah, that is the right person. I think you must have had that as well. And you think that is the right person, and it has to be aligned with the right situation. I mean, this is a good example, actually. This old chap, I met him. He was coming down this side street here, and as far as I could make out, he was having his kind of daily walk down to the high street, which run along here, and then back home. It was a late morning, and I got chatting to him, and I knew he was shy. He was incredibly shy, and I had a bit of experience in meeting people, that I knew that it wasn't going to be an easy situation. But I knew that if ever there was going to be a portrait that was going to suit mine, was this chap. So I chatted to him for ages, and all sorts of chat about his hat and how he Harris tweed and all sorts. And then I said, oh, would you mind if I do a photo? And he went, oh no. And I thought, oh no, I can't. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to persevere. So on and on it went, and more chat and more Harris tweed hats and the jumper and all this colour and all this sort of stuff. Then eventually after a bit I said, can I take a picture? And he did say yes. He just nodded his head and went, cup like that. Just raised the camera, a couple of frames. And we chatted a bit more, again about the hat, and then off up the street. And I love those. You know, it's just amazing to be able to meet somebody like that.
This encounter with strangers.
Yeah.
But the difference for him or for any of your people in your photographs is that when they woke up that morning, they didn't know they were going to be photographed, did they?
No.
It's the same as when people came to my bus to be photographed. They didn't have time to go home and put their makeup on. It was just what they were standing in the street. And I think that distinguishes your portraiture in that your brain's working very quickly with colour and background and all of that, but also the fact is you're spotting people, as it were, in their natural habitat. They're not getting done up for you, are they?
I'm very cautious if I do a picture after 3 or 4, the sort of moment is gone a little bit. You know, particularly with some younger people, because they tend to pose a little bit, and I don't want that. I want a certain awkwardness somewhere between where they're completely awkward and also where they're sort of completely posed. It's that little moment in between.
But you're not shooting much, are you? Shooting 2 or 3 frames.
Yeah, sometimes a bit more, but not more. And only one place. That's it. That's a one shot. So
mine were one. I used to do 12 pictures on a roll. And never more than 1 frame.
No, the reason I did 2 or 3 is the blinking. You know, because you know. You suppose if someone blinks, which people generally don't, because I try as hard as I can to hold that moment, and then that's it. You know, that's I think one of the not problems, but difficulties with digital photography is this idea that you can do as many as you like, and you tend to rush a little bit. Young people say they tend to go and do that picture too early, and it takes just that moment of composure to just go, okay, I'm not quite ready yet. And sometimes when you're doing a little bit, then that's when the people are looking at you, they're giving that a bit extra, and then you can take the picture. It's a funny moment. It's very hard to pin down.
I recognise in your work, the book I'm not familiar with is Via Vauxhall. I remember seeing the pictures on Facebook, but I don't have the book. But the other two, but the other 2 books, there's a real, I kind of see 3 different kinds of picture that you make. So this one and the next one to it are of a kind in that these people they're staring down the barrel of the camera. You've got their complete engagement. They have given themselves to you for that bit. And this stare is a very it's a real Neil signature. I think. I mean, I love it. I love it because it, like, if I met her, that stare would be different.
This is true, and actually, sometimes the pictures. I know what's going on to the side, and I often look at it again and realise I was quite good to make this connection, because her mother and father were stood right here, and obviously they were interesting, but they didn't have, her presence. So she just, at that moment, and I only did, I think, 3 shots, and I don't know, the presence, shots like this, I mean, she looks fantastic, and the hat and everything, but I think if she'd gone home, she would have done her makeup differently and put her hair on. The hat would have probably been a different hat on. So there's a lot of luck that she looks good.
Definitely. And look, but the colours, this arrangement of colour, is that is. I mean, you have
chance.
But I think that your brain works in a different way.
Maybe. And details. I'm very big on the details. Photos, obviously, I'm a photographer.
Photos any country.
Photos any country. And I didn't. That's the full crop. And probably was. I think it must be snappy snaps outside, and then wimpy here. As somebody pointed out, she's no wimp, which I thought was quite clever. So I love that.
But the arrangement of colour is absolutely fun. The bits of yellow, the bits of red and blue, they all in a wonderful mix.
I guess
beautiful
so. I guess they must be trying to see them like that. So
So let's move on, because it seems to me even when you're doing a full length picture like this guy here. He's blind, or
that was a great story. I was in Exeter. It's one of the early ones in the series, and he said I got meeting and chatting to him, partially sighted, I think, and I said to him, I love what you're wearing. We talked about it a little bit, and then he turned to me after a bit and he said, oh, you should see me when I dress up properly. And here's me in my scruffy jeans and t-shirt, and I'm looking at this man who's partially sighted, thinking, oh my God, you look fantastic, and you're out on the high street. These are early ones, quite simple backgrounds and simple, I think as I got more experienced, I started to build in more complex situations.
But most of the ones in this little set here are what I call staring down the barrel pictures. Even though he's partially sighted, he's got you've got his complete attention, and really there's that thing going on between them and you, which is extremely strong. And it's also what's interesting to me is that it's kind of the same stare, no matter the gender of the person. Like this woman here.
She's called Nisha. Yeah, it's lovely.
It's a lovely. It's a lovely portrait, and she's very, very. She's very composed. But she's giving the same attention, that same equal attention that you've managed to get, and she's
maybe
down the barrel again, straight in. I love that intense look.
A Russian guy, I think. I met him in a shop actually, buying cigarettes or something.
Was he some kind of a busker or something?
No, just a local character. He's actually not too far from where I live. And had quite a long chat with him. Never, sometimes you meet people and you chat for quite a long time, but you never really get to the bottom of what's going on, which I rather like actually. There's sort of some confusion. And why are you out with your cats? I mean, I don't know. And I never really got to the bottom of it. But yeah, just a sort of mad moment.
And the cats are all wearing chains like he's wearing.
Yeah, it was just most unusual. I don't know.
But this blue and red and the purple is
sort of jumper up I quite like. Some of the ones where the colours here actually clash quite badly, which I rather like.
The pink and the blue and the red, his red hair.
Yeah. This was in Leicester. I sort of remember them a little bit. Leicester, Poole in Dorset. And this one actually is quite strong. I can't remember this one, but I think he looks a little bit like an ex-policeman. It has quite an intense stare.
Yes.
And this one was in Leamington Spa.
This is the first one with two. Of the ones that we've talked to, this is the first with where there's two people.
The group situation makes things tricky.
Are they related to each other?
No, they were just sat at the bus stop. I got them to be slightly closer, but again, details. And she's holding a sort of green.
Yeah, which is the same colour
as her thing. And then she's got. It's so difficult to see here, but she's got rather good blue fingernail polish, which is rather nice.
Very nice.
Bus stops are always a good spot. These two couple here. Slightly eccentric, and obviously matching bags. Really quite unusual. I don't know.
Matching clothes completely.
I'm not quite sure. I mean, we had an email conversation for quite a while afterwards. I never really, again, couldn't quite understand what the situation was. I think they were would-be Gilbert and George's or artists, or I'm not sure. I never got to. But again, I like that. I love this idea.
Yes,
what the hell's going on?
You only know them for that moment that you're with them. Yeah. Okay, so this is a kind of this is going to be a Neil classic.
Well, that's what they say.
Because this is you've got her doing the stare, you've got the child also full attention.
Where was this one taken?
Kilmarnock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
but I mean, what's the circumstances here? She's just walking down the street with her beautiful pram.
We got chatting, and chatting about babies and all that. I love a baby. Everybody loves a baby. I certainly do. There's obviously she's got this pram and she's proud of her baby. So, if a stranger approaches, we want to chat. So I chatted to her for a little bit. She was really interesting, actually. And she told me, she said, it's a pity my other daughter wasn't here because she's got red hair too, like mine. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure about painting your child's hair red at that age. And then she looked at me, she knew that I had picked up that this maybe wasn't quite right. Oh, she is 21. And I'm thinking, wow, you've got a baby like this and you've got a 21-year-old, you look great. So we had a long chat, anyway, I took the picture.
And I happen to know this is a restored Silver Cross pram.
Yeah, Silver Cross.
And they're incredibly expensive to get them restored like that.
They are, but and I love this sort of bit of graffiti, just kind of breaks it up.
The tagging, it looks like the child's trying to communicate something, doesn't it? Like in a cartoon.
It was just, when the baby stuck its head, because when you do the dogs and babies and that, dogs are the worst, you can never get them to look. And it just stuck my head out and looked at me, and as if to say, 2 frames, and that was it. And and off we went. But yeah, I keep in touch with her a little bit. I've got her email.
And what about expression? I mean, for me, the expression is all about the stare, but there are very few people who are laughing for you or smiling for you in particular.
Yeah.
Mostly they're serious. I mean, her look is kind of resigned, isn't it?
Yeah. I kind of want just that little bit towards a smile, you know. I think there's a tendency to having contemporary portraiture, and you see in a lot of competitions, this sort of intensity that actually verges on maudlin sadness, which I don't want, you know, because, you know, so it's kind of that. I want them to look like they are when they're walking down the street. And not many people walk down the street with a big smile on their face. If they do, then I'll have that in a photo. I just, you know, it's hard when you see people to get that idea of what they actually look like.
What do you think about the idea of typology, like August Sander, you know, the German photographer who in the interwar period photographed an amazing body of work about Germans in Germany, but very much, as it were, sociologically categorized. So you'd have architect, Jewish architect, I don't know, architect's wife. You know, these would be the captions, and then they were all organised in these kind of incredible. I'm not incredible lists. I'm not suggesting that you're, you know, going to start getting into phrenology and feeling our bumps or something. But there is this idea that in photography there is a tradition of making typologies, and I could see that somebody could come along to your body of work, which is now considerable after 6 years of doing
Seven
this,
years
of doing this, and start thinking, oh, we could curate this as sort of typology.
What's funny about August Sanders, people have mentioned his work, and I'm frightened about. I'm not frightened, but I generally don't look. I know obviously the well-known pictures, so I leave it at that. But I'm not great about categorising people, because I wouldn't want to be categorised myself. Because I come from Scotland, but I live in London, and my children grew up in London, but they're half Scottish, and my wife is from Newcastle, and you know, I'm of a certain religion.
And you have a name that everybody pronounces wrong.
Well, yeah, Neil and Niall. So I don't like to, and I find that with people I meet, that a lot of the people I meet, I don't know whether it's because I choose them, they often find it quite difficult to categorise themselves. So I often will ask them, did you grow up locally? And they'll say, oh no, it was here, and I've moved here. And I think that's very much what the country's like now. People have moved a lot, and obviously there's an influx of people coming from abroad, and all that sort of thing. So I find it quite difficult to typecast people and put them into boxes. I try to stay away from that. In fact, I know a lot of other people's stories, but I'm not a storyteller. I really just visual. In fact, I put the name of the street and where they were taking the time. That's it.
Do you send them a print?
Send them a digital if they want, you know, and then they, you know. But it's a funny thing now is because people have Facebook and Instagram that it's much more momentary. You know, somebody stopping to take a picture is not, I think, when you were there, it's different because now people have a camera themselves. Of course, when you were taking pictures, not many people would have cameras. Everybody has a camera and they can take pictures of anything. They take pictures of themselves all the time. So,
but even so, having a stranger come along and take pictures, is that an issue with you? I mean, do people accuse you of prying where you shouldn't?
Oh, of course. But yeah, I've had a few nasty incidents. But you do want a little bit of a hustle, you know, a bit of, you know, it would be a bit boring if everybody said, oh yes, I'm ready, and here I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. McDiarmid. You know, I like a bit of that, you know, a bit of hustle. And when people say no, you know, particularly when you know that would have been a good portrait, and you've got a good situation happening, and then they say no, you feel a bit crestfallen. Then you go back around the corner and go down on one knee and go, oh, I missed it. But yes, but yeah, going back to this thing about. A lot of pictures, when I send them the pictures, I don't think people dislike them, but a lot of people don't like them because nowadays I think people have set ideas about how they look. I think that's from a kind of selfie culture. They maybe have poses that they're used to. So when I send them a picture which is fairly what I would call straight, I think they're a bit confused. They're a bit to say, okay, you know, I'm not smiling, I'm not sad, I'm just kind of, they don't know how to address it. And people usually say thanks or whatever, but that's the end of it, you know. So, you know, I don't know. That's the way it goes, I guess.
Will any of the people in these pictures be coming to your opening?
I don't think so. There's one a little bit further on they might come. The Welsh boys. well, we can talk about them.
Okay, let's keep going on down.
Yeah, you can do that.
So this is, you know, again, it's the colour and the stare, the looking. I love that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to move and talk about, because I think that there's another kind of picture you do that I also want to talk to you about, which is, I don't want to miss out. We can walk past a lot of pictures, but this one here seems to me to be a different kind of Neil picture because she's looking away.
Yeah.
So this is immediately, and there's quite a lot of these in your collection. So we have the staring down the barrel picture, but we also have this looking away picture.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting them in any kind of a pecking order. It's just a very different kind. It seems to me to be a very different kind of picture from those. Do you want to talk about that a bit? When you have someone looking away?
Yeah, I mean, I probably in this situation, I can't remember. I probably did one towards the camera and one away. I can't remember, but I don't know. There's a wistfulness, I suppose, that maybe comes with these, which in many ways I'm not so excited about. You know, as that kind of staring out the window photography, which I don't like that much. But yeah, sometimes I think with a shot like that is when I can get more than just looking away. I like the way her hands are, as if she's a little bit apprehensive, she's not quite sure what's going on, which I like. And also there's this idea that she's working this ice cream stall. She's probably a bit bored. That's probably the way she's looking most of the time, and looking for something. I'm trying to do that. So,
and the graphics is fantastic. Honeycomb, Dom's Oyster Delight, 99 Flake, and that wonderful ice cream, like a hairdo shooting out of her hair.
And she's got in her hair, you know.
And that she's got her own hair arrangement, and these sweets or whatever they are. You know, I mean, it's this lovely arrangement of stuff. It's a really good Neil colour arrangement.
Yeah, the colour green is good.
Yeah, but there's some of your looking away pictures are wonderful. And it's not just that they're wistful, but they are a different kind of picture.
I think so, maybe. The one thing I would say about when I take a picture of somebody like this in a situation, I know that she's thinking, oh gosh, you know what, I'm in this kind of dead-end job, and you know, he wants to take a picture, I'm not that happy. But anyway, the picture came out okay, and I'm pleased with it. And I know these pictures for her, if she was to see them, not now or 5 years, 10 years, maybe 25, 30 years, where she says, you know what, I had that dead-end job working, selling ice cream in the winter, because I think this was in winter time, or sort of end of spring or something like that. And actually, you know, somebody did record that moment and did capture that job.
But she's like a queen, don't you think?
Yeah, she does so, but of course she wouldn't feel that at the time, I don't think. You know, we've all done dead-end jobs thinking, oh God, you know, I want out of here, but anyway. So yeah, I mean, I do, those ones are very hard to get though. You know, you can take a lot of those shots of people and they don't quite work, and I think, you know, they just have to capture them. But that was one of them. I mean, the colours really help.
Yes, beautiful. So, it's a lovely.
I mean, more colours like that. We need more people to paint like this. Yeah.
Now, the other thing that I really like about seeing these pictures on the wall and printed large is that it invites you to look at detail. Yeah. And this is a picture that is very rewarding. In fact, I have to say this is the first time I've seen it.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But well, you can take us through it. But I mean, there are if you start at the top of him and start working down, I can start seeing several details that I wouldn't have spotted in a smaller print, but which are real indicators of the kind of life that he leads and who he is. Yeah,
well, to be honest, I have to admit, it's slightly embarrassing. If I printed this, I've probably had it up 100% on the screen. I now see it here, and I notice stuff like on here, he's got his knife and fork in his pocket of his
fork and spoon.
And I hadn't noticed it. How embarrassing is that? Anyway, the thing about this is, apart from the circumstance around it, I can talk about, but I love how much detail. He's obviously at work. I think he might have been working. He wasn't working in this garage, but he was working somewhere similar. He did tell me, but I can't remember. But how much detail. He's got a chain on around his neck, and then he's got his earphones, and then he's got his keys in one of these carabiner things attached to that. And then he's got a chain around his arm, and then he's got a jumper around his waist, and then another thing tied in here. And then he's got a scarf on, and then on his shoes, boots, he's got different laces, and it's, you know, just an incredible attention to detail in a working clothes. And then he's holding this yellow piece of paper. I think he was on somewhere with an order to go to another place. But as regards the details round about, I think this is what I'd seen first of all.
The splash where
paint or oil. This is a garage in here. A car had gone into his water. and it had gone in here, and this yellow thing here was insurance. This tag as well, I've never found out what this tag is. Meds.
Meds. It's me. I got there first.
Yeah, there you go. Meds is to do with, they talk about positive meds.
Oh, right.
I don't know. Okay. I'll leave it.
A stimulant of some kind.
I'm not sure. Well, possibly. Yeah. We'll leave it at that, and then the bins and stuff.
But you've got him as well with that lovely gaze again.
Yeah.
And also he's got his left eye looks like it might be a bit poorly or something. Anyway, he's got this. His right eye is really. It's. He's really got.
Maybe he's saying, "Come on, and get a move on. I need to get going." You never know. Other times you say, "What is this guy?" Sometimes I think they're looking at me going, "Who is this guy? What's this all about?" And other times they're just, staring blankly straight through me. So yeah, that was another of the days where I set myself a challenge to say go to. I think I did one of the tube lines where I said I'd go to each of the stops on the tube line. Yeah.
It's so gentle, and that umbrella.
I think it might be called Tinder. I can't remember.
We're still talking.
The way that umbrella is.
Yeah, we're still talking.
It's like being on a bench with two old men.
Well, this is it. Yeah.
The video equivalent, Martin.
Yeah.
One of the things that interests me about your practice, it has developed, hasn't it, in that you've tried to engage with the local arts groups and so on.
Yeah.
So, for instance, when you came to North Wales, you got yourself an exhibition together there.
Yeah.
Of stuff. This is one of the pictures.
This is North Wales. Yeah, this is from Flint in North Wales, and very much in my style. I was driving through the town, and then I stopped. I don't know why I stopped in Flint. I didn't know anything about it. I'd heard about a Taekwondo champion who was from Flint, so it sounded like a good place to stop. So I had a wander around town, and I met this couple here, and they're a couple of Irish sisters, I think, or twins. Never quite got to the story with it, but it's one of the ones where actually they're smiling, and I don't think you could be anything but smiling, these two. Just a fun couple, and just absolutely bemused by what was going on. I think they'd obviously been getting the bus for years, and then suddenly this man turns up with a camera, and they just starry-eyed and stared at me. I went, yeah, okay. Did a couple of shots, and on I went. But yeah,
they're charming. So tell me about that. So you engage with the local gallery there, or something?
Yeah,
How does that work?
Obviously, I'm travelling around the country. Excuse me. So I'm interested in building this body of work, which is a sort of semi-permanent situation, but I'm also showing on Instagram and Facebook, which is an instant medium. So I'm quite interested in going somewhere in between where I can go to an area, which in this case was North Wales, and produce a body of work which is somewhat less formal, an instant, and I can go to these places and say, hey, these are some pictures from across North Wales. They're not part of my sort of bigger collection of more permanent images. They're a sort of looser collection, maybe not the best work, but hopefully they show something which is a bit looser. So yeah, we're doing similar here in Bristol, where I've been shooting images across towns around Bristol, from Worcester south to Bridgwater over time. And again, we're going to be showing those a little bit looser.
So this wall will have town names on it and prints stuck up.
Prints on it, and I'm very interested. These are just photocopies, high quality photocopies like this, which we're going to stick up from different places, which I'm very interested in. It gives a looser. Here's one from Bridgwater, that sort of thing. This is very much in your style from
the matching handbags. Yeah, matching handbags.
As somebody
always irresistible.
As somebody pointed out, they might not be the kosher bags. They might just be
rip-off.
Rip-off, but they are. Again, this one from Bristol. So, yeah, I'm very interested in this idea of having a semi-permanent sort of body of work that is in frames and also a sort of looser arrangement, sort of halfway between a social network and a gallery space. So hopefully, if I get time, I'll nip out and do some more pictures across here, and we can stick them up. They're just going to be pinned up. So yeah, very you're amazing how good colour photocopies are.
They're brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
So yeah, here we go. This is one from up your neck of the woods, Hereford.
Yeah, Hereford.
Yeah.
That was when you came.
I stayed to stay with you. Yeah. And she goes by the name of Same lady, new lorry, is what she calls herself.
Same lady, new lorry.
Same lady, new lorry. She was in the corner of a pub somewhere, and I don't know what had happened. I don't know whether she'd fallen out with a pub where she'd been using their car park. She'd moved somewhere else, but obviously her lorry had fallen apart. So our slogan was "Same lady, new lorry."
Yeah, very good.
Very good. So yeah. Anyway, and there we go. Weston-super-Mare, that sort of thing. All sorts of things. So that's that. So yeah.
Then there's another one from Wales here.
Wales, yeah. This is one more.
From Bridgend. This is South Wales.
Yeah, I've made a number of trips to South Wales, and I know South Wales is a relatively small area to get to, well, to drive around and get to, but you know, it is quite difficult to build up a body of work there. But this was taken in Bridgend. I met these two really engaging young kids in the street. And I think it's important to photograph kids on the street. It's not an easy thing to do. You know, people think, oh, you shouldn't take pictures of kids on the street. I don't know why. I mean, Britain has such a heritage of, particularly Britain, of children on the street. You look like to Bert Hardy in all these pictures, but now we're not supposed to do it. Anyway, so I I'm on my way to.
So what sort of age are these? About I think 13 or something? 14? 14
or 15.
Yeah.
I keep in touch with them, actually. This is Levi, with his Levi's headscarf on. And he's got Levi with two eyes. I don't think he was officially called Levi with two eyes. And this is Luke, who's known as Lukey with two E's. So it's Lukey and Levi. And really engaging kids. And I still sort of follow them a little bit, although their lives, they're grown up now, because this was 4 or 5 years ago. And their lives changed so much at that time. But yeah. And Levi, he's quite into Supreme, which is a skateboarding thing. And I noticed recently he had a bad accident and lost a finger, believe it or not, in a sort of skateboarding type accident.
Wow.
But yeah, and just trying to, you know.
I love their poses, this kind of clutching onto themselves.
There's kind of like, you know, we're quite hard, but we're not really.
Yes.
And, you know, things, the detail about, I think there's a cab company up here, just a little bit of that coming in. But yeah, they're great characters. And a moment in our lives, well, we all want to go back to that age where we're kind of kings of the town. We can roam around, we're out of our house, we're free of our parents, but we get home for dinner, you know, and that's what these two are like. And, you know, I followed him online. He was a great sort of break dancer, and he used to do little videos that he put on YouTube. Really, really wonderful characters. So, yeah, it's kind of funny to watch them grow up, but not get involved on Facebook. So, yeah, that's Bridgend. But yeah, I would like to go back and do some more in the valleys. I made a couple of trips up that way. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, what we've got here, I struggle to remember some of the places. Top one of there, Coventry.
It's fantastic.
The Coventry zigzag one. Yeah. Bournemouth. This one here is from Vauxhall when I did the bus project. Stirling, Scotland, my hometown. Yeah, got very Scottish here. Covent Garden in London.
Such a gentle picture there. Is he a Sikh chap?
Yeah.
Yes.
Couple, that lovely couple. French. She was French, and he was British. Very interesting couple.
But so it's such a they present themselves so gently, don't they? But they have presented themselves.
Actually, when I saw them walking around, they were walking in a certain manner which I have not seen that often. The one on the top left is from the Valleys. Now, what's the town that Tom Jones grew up in? You should know that.
Delilah.
Yeah, that one. I can't remember. Anyway, that's
Pontypridd.
That's the one. Yeah, Pontypridd. That's it. Pontypridd. Yeah, and just a good colour combination. And next one, Glasgow.
That's amazing. What has he got written on his chest? With
he's got a thing called "Up Your Kilt." When I was young, that was a big slogan in Scotland. Where you used to see it on car stickers. Yeah. Up your kilt, and it was. You know, a bit of a slogan, but he's obviously, I don't know whether they still make that t-shirt, but anyway, maybe he's had it since, and he's got a can of Coke, which maybe he shouldn't be drinking, but hey-ho. The next one along, I tend to have names for pictures in my mind, and we think of him as Soldier Boy.
Yes.
Because I met him with my own son, who was the same age at the same time, and we took his picture, but I never heard from him. So I used to chat to Tom, who's the same age, and we used to say, I wonder what Soldier Boy's up to, because that's all we knew. It was in York.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, he got in touch, and his father sent me an email saying, oh, he's all grown up now. In fact, he's taller than his dad now, which is quite freaky. And he was a really interesting kid. He used to wear the same uniform to school every day. He was just you know, a bit,
Soldier Boy.
Soldier Boy.
Yeah.
So let me pick this one up here.
Right, this is your big yellow.
This is yellow. This was in Carlisle. I'll show you this one here. And one of the things that's important with me about this picture is that it sort of pushes my style a little bit. And sometimes I think if you really want to make a name, particularly when there's so much photography these days, you really have to have a really recognizable style. I mean, I don't want every picture to be like that, but I do want something to come up and people can say, oh, that's one of mine. So yeah, this was in Carlisle. I can't remember why I was in Carlisle. Anyway, I was in Carlisle. I was walking around and I just saw this chap sitting here, and he's got yellow, and he's got his yellow cigarettes, his yellow jumper, and this AA van. You know when you're on the high street, the AA try and sell you the AA thing?
The insurance.
The insurance and get you to sign up to their thing. And then the tree here. I mean, obviously I had...
all the yellow.
Yeah, obviously I had to paint all those leaves before I got it. It took forever, Daniel. You wouldn't believe it. But anyway, there we go.
Yes, a signature yellow picture.
Yeah, yellow. Well, I don't know. I quite like yellow. My mum's favourite colour. So I'm quite drawn to yellow. Yeah. I tell you what I do like. Yellow cars. We have a bit of a joke in our house amongst the boys. I've got 3 boys. If you see a yellow car, first one to see a yellow car gets to punch. So sometimes we're driving someone, yellow car, and bash, bash, bash. So yeah, I do love a yellow car. So,
and tell me about the exhibition in selecting the pictures. Is this your choice, or have you worked with Rudy, the publisher?
Mostly, believe it or not, Katrina, my wife, is quite good. You know, when you've got a big body of work, and you're continually shooting, sometimes you don't see the ones that, and I sometimes can get, how would I say, drawn to the situations that were more difficult to make the pictures, and they might not be the best pictures. And also because I want to show a different makeup of society, male, female, older, younger, different diversity, all that sort of stuff. It does take an eye sometimes to match in the colour and that sort of thing. So, yeah, it's quite difficult. And also, as the style changed a little bit as you've been working at it, it's quite difficult to see that yourself. And it does take an eye to do it. But
and for the book, did you choose the ones for the book, or did Rudy help you with that?
Katrina and I mostly. I find editing can slow you down, and I think for me, everybody's different. I need to keep moving. I need to be a heart. I'm a kind of street photographer, so I want to be out there, and I want to go out making new work. So every day, I don't want to be spending hours editing books. No. But you know, so in the back of your mind, you're thinking about it a bit over the time. You think, yeah, that's might be good to go in, and then when it comes down to it, you can. Yeah, I don't want it. You know, a week max. Get them out there, print them off, change them around a bit, and move on. You know, you can come back again. You know, I don't want to be drawn, you know, dragged down by it. So yeah. Okay. Where else we got? The
lovely kid with the red hair and the
Exeter,
in his pocket.
Yeah, Exeter. That was one of the early ones. You know, a very engaging, a very you know, good-looking guy. And I met him, and he was walking around town, and I kept in touch with him for a while. He was in a band, a punk rock band. But yeah, looked cool. You know, just looked great. Another early one in London, which was kind of a signature starting look, where I realised, it was one of the earliest ones I did, where I realised where I could take a background and match it in with a person. And it didn't have to be, when you start, this idea that the background had to be right behind, you know, this idea that it could be a kind of bit broken, and just a little bit of a match, and the Ipswich, another day trip, you know, interesting character. One from London, Chester here. Now this chap's
this man with the most amazing tattoos.
It's tattooed face. Yeah. I mean, I had chatted to him, and he knew I had a camera, and he knew that I was going to ask. But a very shy and gentle man, seemed it. You know, chatted to him a little bit, and just a couple of shots, and he told me his story. And yeah, often I meet people who, you know, maybe are wearing clothes which are a little bit different from, and they often, I don't know why, often tend to be more gentle people, even though they're projecting this idea of, you know, being either confident or different or whatever it is. But yeah.
But that whirligig of colour.
I don't know what that was. I don't know. I think it was something to do with some art project or something. You know, I could find out, but I think. When I was there, I asked somebody and they told me, but then I forgot. Newcastle. I go to the north.
You have this is such a sweet, gentle picture, and it's although they're completely different characters, it so reminds me of the Sikh couple.
Yeah. Actually, this is one of my favourites because somebody who I know knows this man and said, you know, he can be a little bit lonesome on his own, and I thought, you know, to me it was great to capture. I mean, also details, obviously the red socks, but if you look, he's got on his finger, he's got a
sticking plaster
he's cut himself, you know, just the way he's holding his fingers as well. I've done a lot of pictures in Newcastle. It's a second or, well, probably a third home to me after London and Scotland.
But also I mean, one of the things that interested me about your book Via Vauxhall was that it was a book that was driven by, that body of work is driven by a quality of light.
Yeah, that was a different quality of light,
Yes. And so you made a book that was about people moving in and out of a particular quality of light, which seemed to me to be sort of bounced summer light around shiny things in the street and more bus shelters and so on. Whereas this picture, well, most of the pictures here, apart from the Sikhs, are in soft light.
Soft light, To be honest, when I was doing the Vauxhall one, I was very drawn to pictures I'd seen from other places, particularly the west coast of America, places like Los Angeles, where that sort of sharp, cutting, warm light, which we do get in this country, but maybe we don't get every day. Well, I mean, we get it all around the world, but obviously they get it more often, so you tend to see projects, and I was really chasing that. And I shot a lot of those pictures at the weekends because I was freer then, and I was interested in warm light. I'd like to do more. It's not something that's done very often in the UK, that warm light. I mean, when we think of all those American photographers, I was very drawn to that. So
But a lot of these are in soft light.
Soft light, well, of course, I tend to be working during the day, and I don't like to use flash. So I'm very interested in finding light, which is, you know, easy, so not too many shadows. So
Now this black guy in the doorway. He's the little bits of colour just fly out, don't they? The purple, and the green hat, and it's just like the other pictures, but it's a completely dark photograph.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I saw him walking down the street, and when you go to this side of it, there's a normal shop, and there's another side of the shop, and he just happened to be there. And he's an interesting character, and one of the few where I didn't really know what was going on. We chatted a little bit, I'm going to take a picture, and let me put this down. And then he said, yes, I think so. So I did a picture. It was great, and I chatted to him a little bit more, and then he headed off. Then about a year later, I met him in the TK Maxx, of all places. I said, oh, hi, you know, we did the picture. And he looked at me and went, yes, we did. And then he just walked off, and I thought, oh, wonderful. And I wondered how many other people had asked him for a photo. But it's just the way he held his hand like that.
But it is interesting that some of these people are people that you've kind of, your eye has rested on, like the guy in the yellow jumper, or the punk rock band kid, or the woman in the blue. But then there are other people who are very much out there, dressed up to be seen and to perform. He'd be one. And so the goth girl in the next one is somebody who's definitely on show.
She's called Maria, and I met her at King's Cross. And you know what? I saw her green hair in the background. It was only later when her hat matched in with this sort of thing.
Yes,
and I sent her a message. I said, oh, you know, I really like your Batman hat. And she was laughing at me and went, it's not Batman, it's the Wu-Tang Clan, she said. And I felt like a right old granddad, because I think the Wu-Tang Clan are actually about my age anyway. So she told me about that. And she's got very green eyes. I'm not sure, but she might be wearing green contacts. But anyway, she sort of follows and is very engaging. And a sort of paler face, So Maria, I think.
Now then, there's a favourite here, colour coats. Colour coats. This is when you sent me your book in 2013, and I started opening it and turning the pages. This picture, I just love this picture. I love the girls. I love the
so one of the smiles, but I can let this one go. So this is Colour Coats. For those of you who know the Dire Straits song Tunnel of Love, from Colour Coats to Whitley Bay is, well, in the song, but Colour Coats is the next town down between Whitley Bay and Tynemouth on the northeast coast. And I was travelling down there. I actually had my family. Quite a number of the shots are taken with my family in the car on a stop. But I saw these two and I thought, yeah, that's a gimme, as they say. And so anyway, I went out to them, a little bit confused by the situation. But I got chatting to them and yeah, we can do a picture. But then they told me their story. I can't remember their names, it wasn't that important to me. But they were from Glasgow and they were down in Whitley Bay for a get-together with the girls. I'm not quite sure whether it was a hen do or not. But anyway, they were at the hairdressers, which was just around the corner. They got their rollers in. They go back to the flat where they are. And they were doing what I think is technically called a bit of pre-gaming. Are you familiar with pre-gaming?
No, I'm not familiar with
pre-gaming. Means a couple of drinks before you go out. It's much before, I guess, when we were young, almost, we would go straight to the pub. Had a few drinks before you go out. Pre-gaming, cab comes, probably the Uber. It's on the way, you whip your rollers out and you look great, and on your way. So yeah, they were great. The thing I liked about this Glasgow connection was that Glasgow and Whitley Bay in this area had great ties where people used to come down for their holidays. It was a summer holiday. It was to go to Blackpool or Whitley Bay. Yeah. But that's obviously died now because people tend to go abroad to Spain or whatever. So it was, it's that connection with a long time ago.
And you've managed to avoid a horrible thing for photographers, which is lamp posts.
Well, a little bit, yeah.
No, they're okay. I mean, it's just, I have this thing about lamp posts growing out of the top of people's heads.
It is difficult. I actually, it's very difficult because when you get back and you're doing the pictures and you think, oh God, Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could retouch them out and all that, but that's not something I do. I tend to get it right, so yeah. So yeah, that's in Colour Coats, yeah. It's nice to get pictures from slightly unusual towns.
It's full of joy though, isn't it? And also they're great looking women, they're full of life. I mean, I just love the life in that picture.
I'm always drawn to, when I photograph people, what they're doing now. Do you think that? I often think, are they married now? Particularly when people who are in their late teens or early 20s, because I know 4 or 5 years later, those times in their life are so changing.
Well, as I think I mean, if I've spent half my life taking pictures of people, I've spent the other half tracking them down and finding out what happened to them and trying to understand what those pictures mean. So there are, I mean.
Well, I've had an experience where I've gone back to photograph people and it didn't work out for me. So that's probably not going to be a goer from me. I
think there are certain. I think I was lucky. I did it with people who were mostly in their teens in the 1970s, and then at the end of the 90s, they were all in their 40s.
Yeah, maybe that's a good time.
And that difference of 25 years was very sweet.
Yeah.
But the next 25 years is probably not quite so sweet. And there's something about the energy between those pictures that is full of life. But they're full of life, and that's ultimately what I really like about your work is that you have this very direct engagement with the people at the moment when you're taking the picture. Yeah. And what that is about some kind of celebration of life.
Possibly, yeah, I hope so. Yeah. So let's do this one here. How are we doing? Okay, let's do this one.
This is an iconic picture for this show, isn't it? I mean, this has been all over
this is
Facebook, and it's in the it's been used.
Maybe not so much in this show because it's been in other ones, but I live in London, so it's easier for me to nip out and go to different places in London. And I had this thing where I said to myself a few times, I said, I'll challenge myself. I'll go to as many places in London as I can, because London is basically, for me, is a series of little villages, even in the centre. So I think of Hampstead and Shoreditch and Hammersmith and Wandsworth and Clapham and all these sort of things, and even the central. So this is in Fitzrovia, which is an area I really, really like. It's sort of north of Oxford Street. And I was walking down and I saw this woman and she was outside I guess you'd call it a rag trade, where basically she was selling fashion clothing back into the industry to other. And I knew that she looked good. She was very shy and I chatted to her. And I'm guessing that she might have done some modelling in the 60s or the early 70s. But she's called Roxanne, I think, which just added, I mean, anybody called Roxanne is going to get photographed by me. And anyway, I just did a couple of shots, and you know what? Afterwards, I was going home, and I thought, you know what? I haven't got it. And then I looked at it again. I thought, you know what? When I started looking at the picture, just the cigarette and the way. There's something about holding a cigarette like that you can't do anymore. It's something from that period in time that only people in that era could do, the 60s, and the way she's standing, and she has
But also the grey hair and the white sleeves and the bits of white hair.
Yeah. She looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah, she does look absolutely
And, she's got quite a few wrinkles in her face, but you know what? She probably looks better now than she did when she was in her teens.
And the way she's looking at you, though, it's a kind of resigned look. It's a different kind of look. It's like, I know how powerful a camera can be.
Yeah.
And I'm watching you.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching you. Yeah. But
and she's watching us through.
I know where she works, but I've never been back. I often feel I should go back, but she might come and she go, I hate that one, and I go, oh well, maybe it's a bit late now. But yeah, she does look great. I hope I look that good when I'm her age. So, yeah. Yeah, no, this was in Derby. Just walking up the street. I can't remember why I was in Derby. Probably a day trip, a cheap ticket, and yeah, I met them coming down the street. I'm always interested in teenage couples, and in fact, throughout the whole body of work, I'm quite interested in homing in on specific people. I think one of the things I'm really interested in with teenage couple is that I know there's a chance that they're probably not still together. That's what happens with teenagers in relationships. And I don't want to know, but I want to imagine whether one's gone to university or whether they're still together. I'm also interested in, when I see teenage couples, of, who's the leader, shall we say. And in this one, I see the girl here, and she's got her hand out of her jacket. It's kind of continental, a bit French, and she looks very confident. And although he's staring straight at the camera and is taller and bigger, he looks more innocent. And he's got his rucksack over his shoulders, which is quite like a sort of primary school way to wear your rucksack. Well, she looks, and she's holding a bag, which is more of a 20s and 30s thing. So, but yeah, they're holding hands and very natural, and and I would never like to know whether they're still together or not. But maybe in the back of my mind, I'm hoping that maybe somewhere down the line that they get married and have children and that. But because I have a series of teenage couples I've met over the years. This looks like one that they might be still together. Anyway, yeah, teenagers are always good to photograph. Yeah.
She's definitely the dominant character, I would say, just in the way she presents herself. Yeah. Also, she's really thought about everything to do with her appearance, hasn't she?
Particularly even when she's at school. I remember when I was at school, there was a bit of a I'll make a statement by putting a short tie, which was kind of amusing for a little while, or that. But it's just gone that bit different. She's got bands on her arm. Yeah. She's got the tie, which is probably, and then she's just taken her arms out, and she's got that look. Says, I'm going places. Yeah. So I mean, he looks good-looking lad. He's got quite cool hair. I think he might have a bit of dye in there. But anyway, I like.
It's like young love, though, isn't it? I mean,
I guess so.
It's a kind of universal theme, though.
It is, yeah, but you don't see it that often.
No, you don't see photographers making that work. But but you see it in the street all the time.
Yeah, it's quite hard to capture, though, to stop people and get it. Yeah, I've got a few up and down.
And also, I would say this is probably the most difficult kind of picture, because there are other people walking by who are probably their mates at school who are all shouting stuff out.
Yeah, that is a difficult one. Do you find that?
So they find it really difficult to respond to you, even though they want to, because they're embarrassed by what's going on around them.
I know. Sometimes when I see a group, and I know that a group photo is much more difficult, but then there's 2 or 3 people in that group, and I think, well, you know what, it would be nice to single that down. And that is quite it's a challenge to be able to do that. And actually, I can show you a picture we did on that, which there was 4 people, and I had to photograph the whole of them, and then I had to say, do you mind just leaving, which is quite a tricky thing to do. So, anyway, that's Derby.
Your Catholic priest, he's new, I haven't seen him before.
Yeah, Catholic priest. I mean, Catholic priest is nothing, well, it is unusual to see a young Catholic priest. But obviously, young Catholic priest with a pink suitcase, I don't know, and very prim, which was nice. I don't know, he was on his way, it was Paddington Station, he was on his way to Somewhere in the west, he told me. I forgot. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, this is this man smoking, and it's this. Look, it's like his legs are just like the lamppost. You know, it's like.
Yeah, it's slightly unusual because he was cleaning drains in a shop somewhere. He was kind of like a shop fitter fitting it out, and he was taking a break, and he'd been down, down the drains basically, and he's engaging, sort of fellow friendly, did a few pictures. But then I posted it online, and what I didn't realise is there's quite a certain group of men who are very interested in men who wear welly boots and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, I didn't know this. And there's a sort of fetish thing, but anyway, so it all went a bit viral. I had to take it down. But anyway, I didn't realise this. It was weird. Anyway, I always.
What you trigger accidentally.
Well, this is it. Yeah.
Is there anything? Is there two men sitting outside? These haircuts are just fantastic, aren't they?
Well, yeah. This is in South London, in Southwark in South London.
So these are hipsters.
No, these are not hipsters. I would say, you don't like to categorise people, but these are what I would call traditional Londoners, even though they may not have been in London.
I agree with you about not categorising people, but sometimes when people categorise themselves, like the goth would be irritated if we didn't say she was a goth. I'm just trying to...
definitely. But I would say they're hipsters. I would say they're more traditional Londoners. The haircut. I think it's very difficult to spot trends about things in males. The haircuts particularly, we went through a period in the 80s where mullets were big.
Yes.
And I think this style of haircut, not quite as extreme as it is a kind of mullet of our age. And I wonder if we come back and see these two lads and then 30 years' time, maybe when they've got a little bit less hair, and say, oh wow, there is a big thing with shaving your head down one side. But this is a tricky one to do because these are lads that got they're going for a few beers, okay?
Yeah.
So I know there was one frame on either side. The one here, they're cracking up. This one here, I've had enough. Yeah, so there's just that one moment I got to, and blokes of that, difficult to photograph, and that sort of thing. But I had a couple of drinks before they're going out. And I got the feeling from chatting to them, we're going to beat a bunch of mates later on. We're getting their stories straight before they went. I don't know why. I just got we'll have a drink and then we'll see them.
I love your reading into your own pictures. Yeah.
Well, of course, and I don't want to.
And then here we've got a cluster which involves quite a lot of pairs, lots of pairs, a little group of three chaps. Who are these two?
We've got three here. We put these three in a row because there were three girls of a certain age, and I guess it was my way of showing, teenage girls from different backgrounds across Britain. So over here, we've got two girls in Hull, and they're dressed in semi-punk gear with their DMs and their denim jackets, and they've got badges, and they've got
tights.
And great hair, where she's got at least a can of hairspray in there and a half dye. These two girls who are in South London, in Tooting. Now, they did tell me what their background was, but I know a Horn of Africa country origin, but really engaging. One of them is expecting a baby, and again, reading into them, they were joyous about one of them expecting a baby, and maybe feeling that the other girl might be having a baby sometime, but I had that feeling. I shouldn't read too much into it.
But they're more like nuns.
Nuns, but they were just fun. They were really fun. It's some of the fun. And then these two here.
In mismatched flower.
You guess. Where do you think?
West Bromwich.
Not too far. They were in Salford, just in Manchester. They were waiting for the tram. But I can't remember what I was doing there. I just took a wander around Salford. I just wanted to go. I'd never been, and I met these two, and there was just. I think they were going into town to do a bit of shopping, and they got these yellow jelly shoes on. Yeah, I've seen them. They look the most uncomfortable things ever. But anyway, great. Again, a bit of detail.
And a beautiful handbag that's pink, but with a mismatched pattern.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And then, of course, the Neil touch, the Budleia in the back.
I think that's actually. I once posted some pictures like this on a photo library. Called it Budleia, and somebody called me up and said, "That's not Budleia. That's a weed."
Well, Budleia is a weed, isn't it?
I don't know. Up here, Glasgow. Again, quite a signature. a man from a different background. He's Italian, in Glasgow, showing colour. So again, that's a kind of image which is quite simple, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and the lovely red going off into this paintwork.
Yeah. Now, this one here was what I was talking about, doing a group shot, because there was another man here who was wearing red.
Okay.
And I had to say, oh yeah, let's do a group shot, because I'd seen the picture. And then I said, oh, would you mind just... And he was a bit like, oh, what's wrong with me? So anyway, in a Scouse accent, because it was in Liverpool. So I took them. But yeah, again, when you're doing the group shot, I love the group dynamic. When you look at this picture, there's one man who's sat in the middle, and he's older, and he's projecting the boss situation. Man at the back, he's a little bit younger, and these other two. But if you look closely, they're wearing almost identical clothes. Yes. They've all got grey hoodie tops on, then they've got their fluorescent safety things on, and then they've got their white painter outfits, and then their steel-tacked boots.
The smoking ban's been quite a gift to you, really, hasn't it? People coming out of buildings to have a quick
Of course, and that's, yes, well, of course, bus stops and smoking, anywhere where people stop is, is good. So, this one here, we should do this one.
Red trousers.
Now, red trousers.
They're a real issue, aren't they?
Red trousers. Now, this guy, what a character. He lived around the street from me, and this was actually when the royal wedding day in, must have been 2011 or 12. I don't remember, when Prince William and whatever his wife, Kate Middleton, got married. And they had a street party, and he was out there. I met him. And I chatted to him for quite a while. He told me his story and all sorts of stuff, and how he'd kind of been an extra on Downton Abbey, and had his ups and downs in his life. And anyway, I saw him about 4 or 5 years later driving down the street in his Jaguar red E-Type with the top down. And he was quite a bit older by then. I was unsure whether he was still going. And then about 6 months ago, he called me up. Hello, boy, how are you? Any chance for print? It's great. Super. I was sent him the print. I've never heard any more from him, but I'll bump into him sometime. Yeah. Because it was in an exhibition at the Museum of London, which he'd seen, but I don't know why he didn't contact me then. Anyway.
It's interesting that you haven't got... The iconography of your pictures is very clear, you know, the bright colours, the mixing of the colours with the costumes, as it were, the clothes people are wearing, and the stare. These are, real nihilisms. But here we've got something that, say, Martin Parr would use a lot in his pictures, which would be the Union Jack. This is actually the only picture where where that happens.
I did do one other with the Union Jack, and I find... One thing, I find the Union Jack a terrible design. Of all the flags, I just find it quite... I'm not against flags, but if somebody needs to come up with better designs on flags. They're always designed by... I'm a designer, I just hate them. So I try to get away from that. I've forgotten what
Come to Wales, we've got a green flag with a dragon.
Green flag,
There ain't no green on the Union
flag,
Jack,
I don't know what good flags. I've never seen a good flag. I suppose the United States flag is not bad. This one here, I saw the wall, and I was looking at the wall, and this man almost just like walked into it.
Yes.
He was like waiting, and
wearing the colour.
And he stopped and looked at me, and I went, yeah, just about there. And then barely a chat, and then his beard and everything like that. Yeah, this is the Modern Art Gallery in Oxford.
All right. Museum of Modern Art.
A Museum of Modern Art. So I was in there. Good loo stop. I have my loo stops around the country. Everybody who's a street photographer needs their loo stops. Yeah, so I pop in there, pretended I had an interest in the art, which I did, of course. But
I found that I could only take pictures when I was on my own. I can never work if I've got someone with me. But you take your kids with you sometime, or your family?
No, if I'm there and I want to take a picture, they have to put up with it. It's always amusing because there's always Dad, no, another person. But yeah, I generally work on my own. It is easier. There's a focus, but saying that, I have got over that idea of being self-conscious taking pictures. That's the one thing I found at the beginning, is you have to become. It's almost like you're a stage performer. Yeah, you're on the street, and suddenly there's this sort of everything goes. I'm on this. I'm in here. I'm doing this. I'm performing this song, and I'm going to do it. And everything else sort of blurs away. And I remember when I started, I was a bit self-conscious. Now, what's going on? What's this guy doing? He's stopping people, because you need to get people to kind of give you a bit of space. So I've got over that, and I have to get into that kind of zone a bit, yeah. But you do come back at the end of the day feeling a bit exhausted, I think, drained, particularly when you've had a lot of refusals and you've had pictures which you think, that was good, but it wasn't good enough. It's going to be fine, but you think, I could have done better. And that's something that's just quite hard to get over when you've had a day like that. I don't know whether you felt that. Did you feel that,
Definitely. It was all about performance. It's all about performance. You don't get this response from people unless you're performing. I'm not saying that you're jumping up and down.
No, you have to be actually quite quiet.
But there's an intensity of the relationship which comes through something that you are doing, which is getting them to give something too. And it's not something you can teach people. You just have to keep doing it until you can do it.
I think you have to do it, and you also, you don't want them to give too much as well. You just need to get a certain amount, because if they give too much, the sort of situation becomes a bit false. So you want to just to get that, it's something you're looking for, and I guess they're looking to give a certain amount, and it's that halfway in between. And if you could just do it.
I used to be quite bossy, because I was shooting film, and I only had 12 frames, and I didn't have any money. And I used to say, you can be any way you like in this picture, but we've got to take it seriously. And this is a picture that you might want to look at in 5 years' time. And there'd always be some guy who'd take his trousers down and show me his backside or something.
Right. I hope you did it back.
Well, to begin with, I used to go along with it and take a picture, but they would never come and collect it the next day, which was my thing. Living on a bus, they had to come back and collect the picture. So I'd have all these pictures of people looning about that they didn't collect. So I'd become quite bossy, and I'd say, "No, you don't do that. I'm sorry, you don't do that. We've got to be serious."
You have to. It's funny because now, particularly in kids, they have things where they do a bit of a side, and I want a little bit of that, but I need to grab a situation where I say, that's good, but can you just move that a little bit, and then to get them, and then you do the photo, and you have to sort of take control, but then you don't want to dominate that picture, because then they become a bit awkward and a bit. So
no amount of performing like this is as good as that bloke with the 2 fingers.
Well, he of course
with the plaster.
He didn't know he was doing that. No, but occasionally, you can get that thing to build in, but often it doesn't work. And sometimes I think maybe the digital thing helps, where you can do one, and you say, that's good like that, but can we do one like this too, and that does help. So it is a bit of a performance. There's a bit of a to and fro between people being on the street, and it is a bit of an exhausting day. Some days you come back, you're catching a train back from Hereford or wherever it is. Can you get a train to Hereford? Is there a railway station in Hereford? I don't even know. I think I drove to Hereford. Anyway, so
Yes, Neil, there is a railway station in Hereford. As he travels from town to town, Neil may find his station stops forgettable. But the people he brings home in his pictures are anything but. They remind us of something, we photographers that is, of something very important. That the subject of a portrait, properly treated, is never a sitter.
Bit of pre-gaming. Do you do pre-gaming, Martin?
Never heard of it.
Pre-gaming?
You have a drink before you go out.
Oh, okay, right.
You go out.
Now you're talking English.
Because, the prices have gone up in the bars quite a bit for a pint, so they have a few Bacardi Breezes. Do they still drink Bacardi Breezes? I don't think so.
I'm sure they still do rollers.